Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules. And at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to another edition of BOA The Revival. Should be a very fascinating edition of the program. We're going to really delve into something we haven't quite explored in depth on the show. We'll kind of get into the nomenclature of it all, but we're talking to a guy who bills himself Mr. Ropen, I like on the on his Facebook page. Jacob Guerra, who heads the Ropen Network, which is YouTube channel. It's on all kinds of places, and he's a Ropen researcher. He's looking into these cases, and as I said, we'll kind of get into the nomenclature, all cases of flying cryptids, essentially strange flying cryptids. And I often think to myself, folks, we've been doing this for a long time, and I've actually voiced this on the program, I think, in the past, where it's like, you got your land cryptids. There's tons of those. Everybody knows those. Your Bigfoots, your chupacabras, your whatevers. And, then you got your water cryptids like Nessie and Ogopogo and Champ. And it's like, but you very rarely hear, underrepresented is the air in the world of cryptids. But Jacob Guerra is digging into these cases. So that's what we're going to talk about here on the show. So I'm really looking forward to it because I have a fascination with all strange creatures. And when I saw what he was doing, I'm like, I got to get this guy on the show because the aerial cryptids, let's do it. Welcome to the program, Jacob. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show.
Tim, it is a pleasure to be joining you and be able to share this information with your audience. And I have to say, and whenever someone comes reaching my way, it only says, hey, these people are fascinated. They want to know more. And I always want to ask the question, how'd you come to hear about me? Was it our channels? Was it Oregon? What was it?
Just through, God bless it, it's as nefarious as it is, the Facebook algorithm. As I sort of looking at different guests and stuff like that, then it starts to recommend other people, and I found a lot of people that way. I actually, I can't slam Facebook for that because they'll put people in front of me that are like, "Have you checked out this Jacob Guerra guy?" And I'm like, "Who's what?" And then I'm like, "What?" So I had to get you on the show. Yeah. So we start out the program when we have a new guest, first time guest, the bio, the background. Who is Jacob Guerra? Yeah. How did you get mixed up in all this, Jacob?
Oh, you know what? There's a long story, but I'm going to actually shorten it for you just to give you an idea. This actually began in 1985. And that was a fantastic year for movies and just a great year in general. And I was very young at the time, but I dived a lot into just reading and researching, even from a young age. I mean, a lot of the work I did from school, you'd be surprised, from a young age, my work was being shown in restaurants and things like that. It was quite an amazing time for me. I was kind of the teachers referred to me as a young protege. And so I had a fascination for anything that was spooky or unknown or hidden. And I saw my first movie because part of this subject, it was called Baby, A Secret of the Lost Legend. It was about
I remember that. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I think, we're of similar mindsets, I think, as kids into that kind of stuff. And that was kind of the movie to me. What was thrilling about the movie was the scenario that it presented, that like there was
absolutely
dinosaurs out there. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that piqued my interest, and a lot of people I knew who were over the years diving into paleontology and things like that. They were welcoming of it. They just really are like, yeah, that's not practical, Jacob. I said, well, what about these books on cryptozoology? What's that? So as I did a lot more reading and digging, I found myself venturing towards this field that has just been a huge wave for me, a mind opener is what I guess you could say, per se.
Yeah.
So I just embarked on that. And as the years went by, it was up and down like a roller coaster until I went into politics in 2001, late 90s, 2001, I want to say.
Oh, wow.
And of all places, why would you find anything in this field in the political arena? Well, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who you're going to talk to. There's a lot of people who are interested in different fields that come together as one in this particular setting of all places.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine introduced me to a woman in Yakima, Washington, along the forested areas, deep into the forest area. And he said, you really got to go talk to her when the session ends. Please go talk to her. And I didn't. My father was really sick at the time. And then when the new session began shortly after, he came back to me and said, did you go see her? I said, I'm sorry, I didn't. And he's like, you have to. You need to go see her, Jacob. Please do this, because I know that you are a cryptozoologist at heart. You love this sort of stuff. So, well, explain a little bit more to me. What's going on out there? He's like, she's seeing a flying creature. I said, oh, it's just a bird. It's just a bird. So as I decided to go out, he gave me the directions. I went out there and looked for myself. I realized that when I was talking to this woman and trying to trip her up and show her images, I could not shake her, because these are applications you use when you're an investigator. I got involved in investigations very early because my parents, because they were involved with the state of Oregon, they would do murder investigations. They would do translations for them. They were part of Salem PD. So it was huge. It really was, because I learned a lot from them, from the officers, the protocol and things to do and what you can use and what you can't use.
Oh, boy. That sounds like a whole separate program sometime, Jacob. You got
Yeah, it is.
All right, yeah.
So as I spoke with her, I tried to trip her up, and I just could not. She clung to what she believed was some sort of flying demon that would swoop down from the trees and literally mutilate some of their animals they had on the property. She never got a picture of it because this woman is not advanced technologically. So, smartphones weren't even around back then. So, and you're not going to capture it with a DSLR or camera like that. You just
Yeah. He's not running out there with the old camcorder, like.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And people, they need to realize it's not that simple. You can't just pick up a camera and film when you're seeing something that is abnormal, that should not exist. So after all these pictures and information I shared with her, came to a conclusion that what she is seeing is a Rhamphorhynchidae. That's one of the family members of pterosaurians. Okay. So because I pointed that out in a book, she was very adamant, had no feathers. It was all smooth skin. So that kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, what did he send me out here for? Am I actually witnessing this for the first time? Yes. And I fought with myself because I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing. But then I realized I had to stop and think, Jake, what are you doing? You're a part of this field for a reason. Why are you contesting this? Either you're with it or you're against it. Make up your mind. So I chose a side. I'm like, you know what? This fascinates me. I'm just going to run with it because she's very sincere and she is desperate to understand what's going on.
Yeah. So
ever since then, the curiosity built. And here I am today, 7 years on social media, been investigating this field for over 26 years now. I've been a part of, I was actually researching the occult before this at a young age, and I've been doing that for over 30 years. So it does kind of intertwine just a bit so you understand the study behind it. But that's what really spearheaded this direction. And then I found out that to conclude this, it wasn't until 2014 I realized I wasn't alone. There are other comrades that I know, and a total of 10 who have devoted their attention to this phenomena, to this one particular cryptid creatures, which I call pterosaurs, okay, or some people would call pterodactylus, which is not politically correct or anatomically correct, but you get the idea. So that's where it all began. That's where it all started for me. And ever since then, the endeavors on social media have been fantastic for us. We mostly do a lot of work with the Salem CC Media, where we do a lot of reporting here in Oregon, seen by about 138,000 Oregonians. Social media helps, but the hotspot for us is mostly the central hub, which is here in Oregon.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, to dive into this creature, so to speak, but I as you can tell, and I had this problem as we were starting the program in a way, because the Ropen is like a very specific case, if you will, or creature, allegedly in Papua New Guinea, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding that. And I guess my question in a way is like, are you sort of looking at this aerial cryptid phenomena, if you will? You're just sort of using the Ropen as sort of an umbrella term for these various creatures, because like you have cases that are from America, from United States, four. Yeah. I picked out a whole bunch, and we'll talk about them as the conversation goes on. But it's like, okay, what these people are seeing in contemporary times is not necessarily the classic Ropen story that came about, quite some time ago. Or am I incorrect? I mean, enlighten me as to sort of your perspective. Not to get too bogged down sort of in the nomenclature of it all, but it's like when I'm post the Ropen and it says, I'm sure you kind of get it too, be like, oh, Ropen, there's skeptical people about all that, but it's like, you're saying this is a much broader phenomena, if you will. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that. Thank you, Tim. I'm glad you asked that question because it's important to understand this. And I've got into it with Riley Black from the Smithsonian, who does a lot of journals. And most of the things you see online that pops up immediately is don't get strung along by the Ropen myth. Well, this is a person who doesn't go out there and investigate for themselves. They sit behind a desk all day long and they type. That's not a researcher. Okay. Might be a researcher in terms of just journaling, but that's not enough. We need people in the field. That's what I do. So Riley, leave that to us. But anyway, it is a much broader term, but I get where people make that connection. Okay, because Ropen essentially means demon flyer. Demon flyer translates to pterosaurian, pterodactyloid. Okay? Mm-hmm. The only difference here, Tim, is that when we refer to a Ropen, most people are thinking we're referring to long head crest, long tail. Well, that doesn't fit the fossil record, at least not right now. Because you're assuming that this is a member of Pteranodontae, which has a family of about 4 or 5, so very small. Just because it has a large pointing head crest does not imply that it is a Pteranodon. It means it's part of the family. And thus far, we just haven't found any species of Pteranodontae with a long tail. That doesn't mean we won't. It does take time. So when you consider Ropen and PNG, they refer to this thing as deadly. It is dangerous, but they know how to prepare for the evenings when these things are mostly seen. They're nocturnal like a bat, even though they're not a mammal. They're a reptile. So therefore, they're not a Chiroptera family member. They do possess certain capabilities that are foreign to the paleontology world, unless you go looking for it in the fossil structure, which very rarely they're going to do that because they think it's nonsense to believe that something like this still exists, which is not true. They do. According to the people in PNG who see them all the time and fear them and revere them, these things are very real, very dominant, and very subterranean in a sense, elusive, nocturnal. However, they have a certain function, unlike any animal on this earth, and that is they can illuminate from their bodies, either wings, body structure, the chest, partial structure there, or the tail, or the head itself, which rings a bell with other cryptids that we've ever heard of. They can create this glow as a way to lure you or to communicate. And there's different color variations on how they do that, which is fascinating because we think, whoa. Since when does a flying animal do this? Well, if the deep sea organisms can do it, if worms on the planet can do it, why are we ruling it out for a flying organism?
Right.
Such as what some would consider to be dragons in the ancient world. That's what they were known before they were called pterosaurs. Okay. Ropen is just another term for pterosaur in other parts of the world. And in PNG, depending on what part of the continent you're on, they have so many different names. One is Ropen, demon flyer. The other is Indaba, which was captured by Paul Nation and Josh Gates. The other is hallucimia, to appear and disappear. The core, representing something that is far more dangerous and elusive. So you get an idea what's going on here. But if you want to know more about the reaction process, I can go into that, but it's up to you, Tim.
What do you mean the reaction process?
Yeah, when we're talking about bioluminescence versus biofluorescence, they're two very distinct phenomena, okay? So bioluminescence is when an animal produces its own light through a chemical reaction inside its body. Now, biofluorescence is different. It absorbs the light from another source and re-emits it as a different color. Okay?
I see what you're saying.
So, yeah. So understanding that distinction is important because the two are often confused, even though they're biologically different processes. All right.
Okay.
But I think that I don't necessarily believe that this is a reaction for all species of pterosaurs. I think there are certain ones that can do this. I'm not necessarily saying that they all have this capability because pterosaurs are very diverse, very diverse.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking just now, listening to you and chatting here with you is, so you're saying, there may be one sort of creature that's hanging around and just, I had to do the math on it myself, PNG, Papua New Guinea, right? So there may be one thing that's kind of hanging around there, but you're sort of arguing that there's these different types of remnant dinosaurs, let's say, or pterosaurs in various parts of the world. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I know that people want to put them in the same category as Dinosauria, but the problem is they're not dinosaurs. They're archosaurs. Archosaurs are a family of birds, so to speak, crocodilians. Okay. We're still referring to reptiles. And this is where it gets really frustrating because I feel like people are just trying to change this all the time to make this hip. And that's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
If these guys are birds, we need to stop referring to them as reptiles then. If they're covered in this pycna fiber, they would have a low survival rate. They're a reptile. They have a different lung capacity. They are not birds. However, they share a trait with avian ornithological type species. And it might surprise you to learn how much more intelligent they are as we're starting to find out that they will mimic as another way of luring their prey. That's creepy. It really is, because depending where you're going and looking, like my team and I have over the years, we found that they like to feast on certain kinds of birds, especially nightjars. But yeah, it's a lot of people just get so much of this confused.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to untangle this ball of Christmas lights here. It's so you're not saying. So people have to make the distinction here. These are not thunderbirds. You're saying these are, and I apologize. I'll stick with the remnant dinosaur. You're making me feel old, Jacob. When I grew up, there were 9 planets and 5 dinosaurs. So it's I just kind of keep it simple. So yeah, but you're saying it's not thunderbirds per se. These are a whole separate category of creature that are sort of like reptilian, right?
Well, this might bake your noodle a little bit more, Tim, because I'm going to have to throw this wrench into it. In a sense, they are thunderbirds, and here's why. Oh. When you speak to the Native Americans and tribals, there's a connection. And I say this to a lot of people because there truly is a connection, because they say, okay, look, Jake, for instance, when you see a horned avian type perched on our totems, this symbolizes that we have seen a mishmash between flying reptile, and avian type. So there is a connection, and they still refer to them as thunderbirds. However, certain species, they have a different name that I'm not going to say. I'll butcher it. I can't say. I don't know their language too well. So when I've spoken to the tribes in Washington and some in Texas, they are saying they give them these unique names, but they're very much aware of them. Almost like they're a ghostly presence in a sense, and they honor it. And they respect it. It's nature. They respect the animal kingdom. So there is a connection, but the broader name for them is thunderbird within the tribal nations. That's what they refer to them. But they hail them as very dangerous compared to the birds themselves, like the roques or the teratorns. The pterosaurians are considered the worst kind, far more dangerous, and something you need to stay away from.
Yeah. All right. So I want to get into some of these cases you've covered, fairly recently, because I didn't want to dig too deep into your archive here. But I guess the one thing I wanted to know first, before we kind of get into specific cases, is how are you? I guess you've established yourself as the guy to send a case to, right? Because you seem to have a whole. I think the thing on one of your pages was like case file 100 and something or whatever. It's like, whoa, he's got a lot of cases here. So I mean, I guess you've collected these, and now people come to you with their sightings and stuff. Is that how it works?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm not alone on this, though. I want to bring up some good names here that people should understand are part of this circle. And that's Garth Guessman, Jonathan Whitcomb, Bill Gibbons, even Ken Gerhardt is on the same page as I am. We both collected a database here of hundreds of sightings. Now, my database alone, Tim, it consists of about 224 now, because we just had.
There you go. Yeah, that was I was off by 100, but yeah.
That's all right. But as few as members there are devoted to the pterosaur, even though I would say Ken has done a great job, he's more broader with different cryptids out there. I've just chosen to go after. Yeah. Though I cover more because I'm fascinated by it. This is my forte. So I am, in a sense, known as the Ropen Ark, but I do want to give credit where credit is due. There are others who have come before me, Dave Wetzel and Jonathan Whitcomb and Garth Guessman at least, and Bill Gibbons. But of course, there's Paul Nation as well. So those things, it's a circle of at least 10. You can easily mention. It's just that a lot of what's being done by my team and this network has put it in a broader direction to where more and more people are starting to come forward and realizing that it's safe to do so without animosity, without scoffing. And I guess that's, there's that calming voice that they've come to you and said, hey, Jake, we really appreciate what you're doing here. You're easy to talk to. You listen. You may not always agree with what we have to say, but at least you're somewhere we can go and expect a good treatment.
Fair shake. Yeah.
Fair. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting about these cases is a lot of them are pretty contemporary. I was really surprised. And the first one I want to talk to you about is from last year, which is insane. It's a 2025 California encounter reported by combat aviation pilot. So right there, folks, that's a pretty reputable witness. Matt McCrory. And you researched this and detailed this on your YouTube page. And like I said, folks can punch in Ropen Network to find out more. But tell me about this case, because I'm amazed that this is just from last year, because I think a lot of people think of this stuff in the terms of like the Time Life books. You know what I mean? It's like, no, this stuff happens nowadays too. So tell me about this Mac McCrory 2025 California encounter, please.
Yeah, at first I thought this was Arizona when he was telling me about it, because he was friends with another witness that we known of, and her name was Laura. And they met, and they actually were speaking, saying, hey, I had an encounter. Oh, really? I had an encounter as well, which is great. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he's not far from Mount Shasta, where a lot of strange UFO sightings have been witnessed. Glowing phenomena? Yeah. Now, he didn't mention that this creature was glowing whatsoever, but he was out for his walk, and he looked up and saw this flying object. He's like, okay, well, that's a large plane, until it started flapping. And he described something that was white in skin color with a hint of gray to it. It wasn't too high up to where he could notice that something is terribly wrong. And despite some of these tests that you'll hear from Monster Quest or other sources, people can evaluate things in the sky better than you think. Okay. So as he's watching this, he started describing the fuselage, the way it moved. He's like, this is no plane. This is an animal, and it's big. And he described something with a large wingspan. I think it might've been close to about 20 feet, something like that. And because it was only, a short distance from the sky, he can evaluate that. And not only that, he's a combat pilot. He's had instructions in this. He's been flying for his entire life. He understands aerodynamics, plane movement. Clearly, differentiating between plane and or living organism.
Right.
So this thing just kept flying overhead, and he studied it and watched it. Now people are going to say, why didn't he whip out his phone? He couldn't. He was in awe. And when you're in awe, you're stuck. And you're just trying to take in all that majesty.
Yeah.
So as he saw that thing fly by, he got a good glimpse of it and described it to the T that he believed it was some sort of, in a sense, Dimorphodonte, which is another smaller group. But this one was far larger than anything on the fossil record. There might have been some similarities there, and it's very easy. He could have been wrong as far as the species. But it clearly had a tail, clearly had the large wings. And that's what we created for him to say, okay, is this something close to? He said, yeah, that's absolutely close to it. And this is an amazing sighting that we could just add to the database. Yeah. But I found him to be very credible, very sincere, and genuine that this is what he encountered and never expected to. But when you're looking up like we do, you're bound to run into something.
Right. Absolutely. Now, what about this Derek Yates case from North Carolina? That's another report you covered on the page. Tell me about this one.
Yeah, we just recently did a short story on this one, and it was a lot of fun bringing that to life because he described this smaller variant that I'm not used to hearing about. It represented something that was more like a skink head, smooth skin, no feathers. And as they're walking out of the store, this happened in not an isolated area. This was at a local store in North Carolina. I won't name the spot. There are certain aspects of everybody's case that I try to keep, confidential, just to respect them as the eyewitness. So as him and his son and his wife, I'm not so sure that his wife was with him during the encounter. I think she was with them in the store, but him and his son at least were walking out. And his son is the first one who saw it in the tree. And it was a big, nice black object just kind of moving a little bit. And that's where his son said, "What is that?" So he looked the same direction. And that's when he saw it starting to move and open its wings and fly out of the tree. And when it did, he saw the tail. He saw the oily black skin. And it flew to the side of the building, which is where they went to follow it to see where if they could see more. And they didn't. But they made assumptions that maybe it crawled under like a storm drain, or maybe it flew off to another secluded area where there is more, more of like a pond area or a lake area from what I was able to find out. But what's credible here is that we have at least 2 witnesses that saw this thing. And when you see something like this, you could easily say, some people say, oh, well, it's just a bird. Well, no. If it captures your attention like this, it's hard to imply that it is avian related. Because they also mentioned very distinctly, it had the head of a skink, which is very odd. And it had the long tail. It was like a flying reptile.
Yeah.
His words exactly, flying reptile. Derek believes flying reptiles truly exist in North Carolina. He's not the only witness. We've had up to at least 4 credible testimonies from North Carolina. His is just one of the other 3.
Interesting. I suppose one of the questions I'm sure you get all the time, so you probably have an answer for this one, but is, where are these creatures living if they're, if they're populating our Earth with us at this time? Because, lake monsters and stuff, they can kind of like submerge and whatnot. And, Bigfoot can hide in the forest, but it's hard to, it's an open sky, man. So like, where are these things residing? What do you think what do you think these things are? I guess in a sense, do you think these are genuine creatures that exist alongside us still today?
Absolutely, I do. I do think they have existed with us since the beginning. I mean, I'm definitely one who believes that these things have been seen with man. They've been documented and they've been studied by man throughout history. As a matter of fact, there are ancient recordings of them on islands with man, flying reptiles. So if you're asking, where are they coming from? What is their range? Where could they be living?
Right.
Very simple. Anytime, Tim, that you have high mountains, large trees, river systems, you could potentially see one of these guys. And this is the case with so many of these testimonies that we have recorded. People are seeing them where they necessarily shouldn't be. We have some of them seeing them in alleyways in California. We have some of them being seen at Avocado Lake. We have them at the Yakima River, which is over 200 miles long, 43 variations of fish in the river system. That's a good feeding frenzy right there. They're also, since they're mountainous dwellers, we have testimonies of them coming out of the mountainsides, scaring some of those who are actually making a living to do, spelunking.
Yeah.
They've seen them. They just come out of nowhere and there they are. And I think they're making homes inside these cave systems. They're also, in a sense, subterranean dwellers. Because if you can't find a home in a mountain, you can find something down below. And then there are other cryptids related to that actually justify the habitual pattern. So we have clearly tree dwellers, we have mountain dwellers, we have cave dwellers, and lower levels in our earth where it might be a little bit warmer and a little bit more safer. And these guys, again, they're intelligent. And I believe there might be just maybe on par with some of the avian types, but maybe even more intelligent than them. So that's why I think this is possibilities of them hiding. But if we're coming up with a theory, someone said, Jake, maybe they're just coming through like a wormhole.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Jake. Like, what have you? I guess you have. Have you pondered the possibility that these are sort of like, I wouldn't say a wormhole like your friend suggested per se, but a time hole, right? Like somehow they're kind of coming through time briefly, time skip or whatever. And that's when people see them like in the sky, and it's like, no, that's. Yeah. You're just looking at a different time briefly for a moment. It's a weird thing that happens.
Well, let me clarify a little bit here. I'm not against this theory at all. I think it's very possible. We know that there are vortexes on our Earth where things have appeared and disappeared. I'm not suggesting that these creatures are time traveling. I think that's reserved for only the power of the one true God. However, animals, if they're going through a vortex, they could be in California, suddenly be in Oregon the next moment, if those vortexes are pulling them through. The thing is, could a body like that sustain such a dimensional pull? That's a good question. I think it could. And then I would also be willing to listen to why it wouldn't support it. But I think it's a good theory, something we should really pay attention to, because people have said, hey, it appeared here and then it was gone. Like a lady from Texas saying that her and her son saw one during a thunderstorm and it was struggling to soar, hence the name pterosaur. And it was kind of just being thrown, but then it gained its strength and then flew and then disappeared. So I also think they're riding the currents during certain storm patterns because it's kind of like a sea turtle. In order to get to one place to another, vast migrational patterns, and the ability to travel. If it says, hey, look, I can get somewhere faster during this storm, I'm going to ride it. Right. So I think, all these things are a great possibility and a good theory, too, that we should clearly keep an open mind on.
Okay, well, I got one more possibility here that maybe I'm sure you probably have thought of, but what about ghosts? Have you thought about the possibility these could be like fucking the ghosts of dinosaurs or whatever? The ghosts of ancient creatures that once lived on the earth that kind of, again, pop in every now and again?
Yeah, I like that. That's not... Let me just elaborate a little bit more on the sense of this. A lot of people have wondered where the idea of ghosts comes from. Well, we know that according to scripture, it says that these beings that were on this earth were wiped out by the flood, leaving their essence behind him, creating what we now know is an unclean spirit or demon that can actually modify or, in a sense, manipulate to make people think, oh, this is just a simple, fun-loving spirit, which it is clearly not.
Right.
So, that's reserved for beings of power. When we have animals, though, that are natural, I tell this to everybody, because they think that they are interdimensional. I have a hard time believing that pterosaurs are interdimensional. They're an animal. Okay. they're part of the natural world. Yes, they have certain capabilities that make them so unique. The fiery flying serpent, the book of Isaiah. However, they don't have the power that someone who's a being has. Okay, so if we were to say, hey, this is the spirit of a deceased creature, it's an interesting theory. No, I don't. I think that's only reserved.
What about the possibility that well, you're saying it's reserved for beings of power then, but what about the possibility then that these could be fucking demons?
I'm glad you brought that up. And now you're probably familiar with the story of the Van Meter visitor, right?
I sure am.
Okay. There's similarities there. All right. I think, again, theory, Jake's theory, don't mind throwing it out there, that these beings of this earth probably can possess certain animals and take on their capabilities. Why? I don't know. It's another manipulation in a sense. So,
yeah,
I think the animals can potentially be controlled and be possessed. But I'm leaning towards when we think of Ropens and what they truly are and what their anatomy, their structure.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a natural creature of our world. Okay. But again, I like the concept. Something there that we shouldn't entirely ignore. And those are the questions I love when people ask, like you just did. Thank you for that.
Well, there you go. Hey, it's not my first rodeo, Jake. Don't worry about that. Now, tell me the story here. This guy in Niagara, he saw 5 of them. That's the title of the video, actually. I saw 5 of them. So he saw 5 of these creatures at once.
He did. I'm trying to remember the exact year. I think it might have been 1972 or something like that, when he was in the library of this particular college. So I did some investigating, and there are those towers. Those towers are still there. I think he mentioned that I don't think they were the wooden structures. I think they were more like the metal towers, unless they recently replaced those wooden structures. But they were large. They weren't just your simple power pole with the cross beams. They were more stable, a lot more stronger. So he believes that what he witnessed, at first he thought they were men working on cables until he started to see the tails move and then the wings open. And they started off with just a couple of them being on the cross sections until others started to fly in and perch and join. Now, as I just thought about this one over and over, Tim, over and over again, he seemed very sincere, but then at the same time, there were some red flags with his story. And new research shows that, these larger versions, which he believes they are, from a distance, you can see the shape of them, no doubt about it. I did calculations on this. And I'm not arguing the distance anymore, because you clearly can see if someone's on these structures or something. The problem is he had a lot of detail there from that distance. I'm not buying that. There's something not right there. And again, out of respect for him, I believe he definitely saw something. They could have been just exotic birds.
Right.
But something's not quite adding up, because if these are members of Pteranodonte, which he said they were, but they had an abnormal system on their crest in the middle, they really can't perch like that. Regardless of what you might hear or see related to JP or Jurassic Park styled pterosaurians, they actually don't get the anatomy or structure correct in those movies. Okay.
Yeah.
Throwing that out there for your audience. The audience needs to know this.
You're going to get hate mail for that one. No, I'm just kidding.
Probably. But look, I need to rain down on the parade.
I tip my cap to you here, because I appreciate that you're like, okay, this case isn't all that after all. Because it's like, well, if you came on here and we're like, every case is the best case ever, then it'd be like, oh shit, come on, man. So I appreciate that you are skeptical of this case. Now let's talk about
you got to keep it in mind.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about the 2021 Arizona case, because you mentioned it offhand moments ago when you said that you thought it might be connected to Mac McCrory's case. So tell me if this is a dual witness sighting in Arizona 2021, Laura and Danielle.
Yeah. Okay. We actually had a lot of cases in Arizona, but hers is very intriguing because she was with her family at the time, and they were going through the Tinque Verde swap meet, and they were just enjoying an outing with their family. Kids were involved. There was at least, I think, 3 or 4 children that were present at the time, and you have to imagine this is a swap meet, so there are a plethora of people, having a good time, enjoying themselves. And only a certain amount of people looked up and saw this. And Laura was one. Laura saw it first as it was overhead. And that's when she pointed. And that's when Daniel took notice as well. And then the rest of the children started to look up too, what's going on. And they saw it as it was passing by. It wasn't that high up. Laura mentioned that it was as far up as a telephone pole. That's low, really low. And that means you can make out all the features of this abnormality flying by. Yeah. It didn't glow, but it was large. It had a large wingspan. I think she said 15, 20 feet within that realm. I have to go back and look at my notes, but it's pretty close to that. Mm-hmm. And again, no feathers, folks, no fibers. But the structure of the wings stood out to me the most, because sometimes that's the first thing you see. People are used to seeing bats.
Right.
And bats. I think your audience should understand this. This is really important. Bats have elastin bundles from the metatarsal structure, like a pterosaur, stemming down in the middle of that membrane. There are no elastin bundles in pterosaur wings, at least for the majority of the species. Okay, those are those lines that you see.
Yeah.
They saw that in this wing structure, which is very strange. That just made me think, okay, well, no problem. It's a different species of pterosaur that possesses it. Okay, no problem. However, the wings were bat-like, not pterosaurian. And then you have a long neck. This is what throws me for a loop. Because as someone who investigates not just pterosaurs, but the unknown, what the heck was this thing?
Yeah. This is strange. These creatures are they all seem a little bit different from each other, which is kind of like the weird part. There doesn't seem to be a tremendous amount of uniformity to these sightings, at least, relatively speaking.
Well, when she said she saw the long neck, I can understand because it passed above them at kind of an angle. Those are the things you're going to see first, but she just couldn't describe the head or the mouth because she didn't see that the portion. If we were there in person and you saw it, you'd be like, okay, yeah, clearly you can't see the head. You're paying attention to the body, the wings. But she said this thing was very muscular. But she described something that was part pterosaurian and part gargoyle-like with those wings.
Right.
So it makes me wonder if something else is happening here. Could be genetic experimentation. It could be a hybrid. We just don't know. But still, being someone who is a retired paratrooper in the military, I consider those testimonies the most credible. This is our men and women serving, and they deserve our respect.
Yeah, I thought you were saying you were. I was like, wait, you never mentioned that in the beginning. So, okay. No. You didn't. I don't think
lots of family members who have served. I just never got a chance, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's very interesting. It's very weird. I can't quite put my finger on it. Like I said, these things all seem kind of different from each other. I don't know what.
I do, yeah.
It's very hard to classify them into anything. It's just weird, man. It's just really
it feels
weird.
Like something else is going on that I can't quite put my finger on. Aside from the norm, aside from the natural aspect of these species, something else could be taking place. I could speculate about that, but maybe it's not necessary. I just keep an open mind.
Well, now I want to hear you speculate. What do you think's going on? You can't. That's too tantalizing to leave hanging for the listeners. What do you think is?
This is a kind of show too. So, okay. Well, we've heard reports that, when it comes to the Sasquatch, people are, being attacked. Some are not. Some are being relocated. Some are being tested. Some would consider there to be super soldiers involving the dogman phenomena, where they're being used and could be a part of end time prophecy. That's something to consider.
Wow.
With these things too, maybe it's a genetic hybrid that I have to believe. Look, the bottom line is this. I do think the government does know about these species, but they just consider us to be in the minority. Like, oh, it's just another strange report from these guys. Who cares? We are in the minority of our thinking. This is not, even though UFOs are considered by most Americans, I think they said the number was now 90% that most Americans believe that UFOs exist. So what else does exist then, right? What else does the government know and is covering up just to keep us in our own box? In our tight little world and our small little thinking. But I'm glad there are people who do think outside the box. And I think that there's a strong possibility that they know about the Sasquatch, they know about the Ropens. So when something happens, they step in, eradicate or relocate, which I think was the case for the Fresno pterosaur event, which a friend of mine sent me a picture of, who received it from a police officer. Now, I don't share that with anyone because it's strictly classified in a sense to protect the man.
What is this now? What is this Fresno event? What is this incident? Tell me about this.
Yeah, this was one of the first ones I came across when I set out on this journey. And apparently this creature had been seen by multiple witnesses for days, for months, just coming in and landing into a certain warehouse. And everybody thought, okay, well, that is a strange looking creature. That looks like it's a pterodactyl. Again, not the right term, but it communicates.
Not Jacob. Not everybody is as well versed on the names of these dinosaurs. I hate to tell you, you're blowing me away with all these different names, and it's like, look, dude, I only know T-Rex, the one with the Stegosaurus, and the flying one. That's it. So,
Gotcha.
I imagine a lot of listeners feel the same way. They're like, what? How many dinosaurs are there nowadays? But okay, so this thing's going into a warehouse. And go on. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, it looks like
but I had to speak.
What happened was this police officer snapped a photo of this thing, and you can clearly tell it's not a fuzzy Bigfoot, but you clearly see the crest. The wings are abnormal. They're not a bird. They're not a bat. You can clearly tell this is Ropen related. Right. We don't see a tail though. But there's a color, curious color there. It's like green and yellow in coloration, which is beautiful. But anyway, what happened was this thing was always being seen leaving and coming back to the same location. So that's when the officer decided to capture a picture of it. So over the course of maybe a couple months, this building was burnt down. Now I find that interesting.
Yeah, that is.
This is a metal warehouse, not an old structure whatsoever, newer. And it burns to the ground.
Yeah.
Something's not right. Again, controversy, potential cover-up. Keep in mind, too, though, I'm just going to throw this out there, though, since we're on the subject of being versed in the Ropen pterosaurian species. We have found 150 to 200 species of pterosaurians today. Okay? But there are only 16 devoted pterosaur paleontologists out there in the world, which tells you there are so very little that we know about them. So I don't want to dismiss the fact that they are potentially poisonous, venomous, and can glow, because that's a good, strong possibility. They are a reptile.
Yeah. And
some reptiles possess these traits. Amphibians possess these toxic traits too. So just gives you an idea of how much we do not understand, but we're trying to. Yeah. So if there's only 16 paleontologists, there's only 10 Ropen enthusiasts right now. Those are small numbers compared to Sasquatch trackers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, can understand your perspective on this, but I must sort of probe a little deeper. But it's like, look, you have this picture. You're the Ropen guy. Like, I mean, this is like the Holy Grail, and you won't release it. You won't show it to anybody because this could blow this thing. This could blow the whole deck of cards right out. You know what I'm saying? I in a way, I guess I salute your integrity and fortitude not to release it, because I don't know if I could resist that temptation. So I guess, tell me a little bit about your thinking on that.
There's a journalist in everybody who does or is involved in this field. And you always go looking, you pry, you look for that story. And I think over time, just being involved with media, I found a balance, the one that I'm content with. It's hard, but you have to find it. And when you do so, I think it strengthens you a little bit more. Picture it like this. If you had proof of Nessie, one that could actually shape society.
Yeah.
Or one on the other side that could protect him. And you risk the chance of him dying because of our actions. Which do you take? It's very important for me to protect these creatures. At the same time, I don't want anyone to be hurt by what these things can do. But that's just part of life, though. People get attacked by bears. People get killed by sharks. So you have to find a balance there.
Yeah.
And if you make your decision, you stick by it. I'm with you, though. I understand there is a need to say, hey, look, this is what I have. But even if you did, Tim, most people are going to say, oh, you faked it. Oh, that's just
say
CGI.
Yeah.
It's AI. You may never win unless you have a 360 video recording of one of these amazing archosaurs.
Well,
that's when it defies all of it.
Yeah. Well, here's another situation, and maybe you have unearthed cases where this happens, but we live in the, guns everywhere. How come having instances of people shooting at these things, when they fly overhead?
Yeah. Yes, there's actually got quite a bit of them, especially in Washington, where people have literally been told to go out and just kill anything that flies. I wouldn't be surprised that they're part of the cover-up, but there was one story that did stand out to me where the man clearly had a shot and didn't take it. Here's his exact words. This is from Fred Jones. He won't mind me disclosing his name. He said, I had the shot, but I didn't take it because I thought, what if it's the last one?
Yeah.
So he recoiled and said, I can't do it. This thing was terrifying and it could easily kill me. But I held back because I was too afraid if I missed too, because he had a crossbow with him instead.
Yeah.
If I miss, this thing will kill me. But then the majesty of it, what I'm seeing, maybe I'm meant to see this. And it's as kind of in a sense, a spiritual gift from the Lord. Take it.
Right.
Savor it. And that's what he did. And that takes a lot. It takes a lot of strength to say no. Because he could have said, look, I got a carcass here, Jake.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm surprised. Yeah. I'm surprised that if these things are flying around that it's kind of like the old Bigfoot argument, where it's like, how come nobody's shot one or hit it with a car or whatever, It's like, well, I guess it just hasn't happened,
Well, I think that most of the time someone is probably doing this, but they think maybe like, okay, where did it land? Or maybe I shot down a bird instead.
Right. That's the other part. Yeah. I could also see, like you shoot it and I see what you're saying. Yeah. Plus I would have like, let's say, Jacob, let's say you're out there you're camping in Arizona or whatever. You see one of these things, you shoot it. Like my first perspective would be like, I can't, this is like almost killing a person. It's like, I can't tell anybody I shot this thing. Like I don't know what it is. I'm probably going to get arrested. Like this could be illegal, shooting down this weird lizard creature. I better just, get the hell out of this campsite and go home.
Well, let me share something with you that I totally am on board with Lance Hightower of Monster 911. If you think you're going to make a fortune off of your discovery, think again. Because if there are people out there looking to eradicate or relocate, guess what's going to happen to you if you truly find something? Now, I'm not saying this will happen to everyone, but there are dangers of presenting things to the general public that maybe these organizations don't want you to see. Okay.
Interesting. That's so, yeah, you're kind of touching on some interesting stuff here in a way where it's like, so you're alleging or speculating or theorizing. I don't want to put words in your mouth that there's a cover up. You've mentioned that a couple of times. Cover up of the, let's call them aerial cryptids or Ropens and adjacent to Bigfoot. That's kind of what you're saying here.
I think it intertwines, definitely intertwines, Tim. And when you spend time in law enforcement and being around officials, investigators, you hear things, you see things for yourself that you're like, wow, I didn't even know things like that existed. But you learn that as time goes on. And there's some things I wish I'd never seen. You know, certain people who have died sitting on the road, children especially, and just mutilated by a car. There are things in life you don't want to see or don't realize are a part of this world, but they are.
Jeez.
We get up every day and we see the world as it is because we're 9 to 5 people.
Right.
But there's another world that exists beyond that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm missing the word there.
Beyond
darker.
Right.
The veil's
yeah.
different types, different times of the day that others see that is far more disturbing than what we encounter every day with our own eyes. But the nice thing too, the reason I'm so devoted to this creature, because I haven't just listened to the testimonies. When you actually see something for yourself, then you understand what everyone's talking about. And I'm glad that I've been able to see that for myself to understand this phenomena.
Oh, you've had your own sighting?
I have, yes.
Oh, tell me about that.
Okay, I wasn't sure when you were going to get to that, so I didn't want to butt in necessarily, but I want to throw it out there. So, based on my comrades, what they were saying when they went to PNG, other parts of the world like Australia, they say this thing has remnants like a phoenix, to where when it's flying, it just burns out and it leaves a streak or a mist of plasma behind it. I'm like, guys, I spent time in parapsychology. This sounds like a spirit. They're like, well, I guess it could be, Jake, but it's pointing towards Ropen activity. And I'm like, well, that sounds fascinating, interesting, but I really think it's a spirit. Because I spent my time devoted to understanding orb phenomena, ghostly lights. And that's good because it actually helped me understand this now. Because what happened to me in October 2024 shocked the hell out of me. And now I finally understand what my comrades are saying. And now I get it. And this is why now when people come to me and say, Jake, I saw it, I can understand far more than I did. So I was looking up in the night sky, and I just always like to look up and always tell my audience, keep your eyes on the sky. You never know what you'll see. And I've seen so many different things that are UFO related. I've seen them move fast. And you know it's a craft. It's some sort of object. It's not natural.
Right.
This, however, just happened to look up and it was moving and there was a plane above. As it was moving, it was stopping. It was slowing down, put on the brakes, and did a burst of light. And when it did that, I saw the plasma trail behind it. And that's where my mind was blown. And I felt exactly like an eyewitness.
Yeah.
No time to pull out the camera.
Right.
You're fixated on what you just saw. And then at the same time, I started to say, no, it didn't happen. I was second guessing myself, but it did happen. I saw the remnant of a Ropen with its capability right in front of me from that distance.
Yeah.
And I was no longer arguing. I just took it in and said, this was legit. I'm sorry, no asteroid or comet is going to put on the brakes and make course direction. These things do. So from that point on, I contacted Garth Guest and I said, you guys are right. I was wrong. This is actually their capability. I truly believe that I just had a chance to see one finally. And when you do see one, oh, you're never the same. I can just add that more to the credibility of what's going on here. And that was actually my second sighting. First sighting happened in Yakima. If you want to hear about that.
Yeah. See, I thought I did a pretty good job digging into your into your stuff, but I didn't know you had personal experiences. So yeah, tell me about this second or either the other one from Yakima. I don't know if it came before or after. So before you said.
Yeah, my crew at CC Media is saying they really want to turn that into some short stories, the things I've witnessed for myself, and I agree. We need to do it. So in 2020. Me and my apprentice went out to the Yakima River to investigate. I'd been there before, and I'd been out to the Yakima Forest decades before as well. So we made a crucial mistake and forgot the bug repellent. And these things will eat you along this river system. I've never seen such a large insect in my life. This whole river system looks like something from the old 1980s dinosaur books when you open those pages and see those hills. That's how beautiful this location is. So it's a tributary that's about over 200 miles long. And what you really need is teams set up along the river system to capture anything. Well, we were few in numbers. So without that bug repellent, we decided to camp at Horn Rapids, not too far away. And then even with that, the bugs were coming in and still eating us. And we're like, let's get away from the region right now. We'll come back. So we left around 2:20 a.m. and everything is just pitch dark at that time. And it's just beautiful. Very eerie as well. So we were making our approach through Weber Canyon, just outside of Benton City. And this is a small community.
Yeah.
You can't drive fast through Weber because it is so dark with those rolling hills. So I was going about 20, 25 miles an hour. I'm pretty sure I was going 20 though. My headlights are on, the moonroof is open. And as we're going through the canyon, something was coming towards us. And it was flying low that when it did finally get to where the car was, that's when it made a sound.
Right.
I distinctly remember the sound, and I actually conveyed this to a multiple avian enthusiast. And they said, I've never heard such a sound. But when it did pass, the vocalization was so heavy and deep that it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. You could feel the presence of a large animal as it passed by. And I saw the shadows, so to speak. It was, what I could make out was, I thought I saw a tail with the wings, but all I could see was a large mass.
Right.
That passed overhead. And it was headed back towards the river.
What was the sound? I don't necessarily want you to have to do it, but I mean, what was, give me sort of some kind of idea.
I don't mind. I've done this before. Other programs, I've only been featured a few times on shows. So I don't mind doing it.
Wake up, Jacob. You're a fascinating guest.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me see if I can do it for you. Hold on. Let me gather myself here. Okay.
Wow. That was wild.
That's exactly what it sounded like.
Weird.
Yeah. That is exactly the sound. So just to give your audience some feedback, and you too, Tim, I've studied avian type for now a little over 8 years, which is not long. So there's other professionals out there longer than me. 8 years though. So I've studied herons, cranes, nightjars, you name it, lots of them. And they have all these distinct sounds that are beautiful and deep. But nothing like this. Now, every time I see this so much on social media. I don't keep track of our YouTube channel. That's what Hunter and others do at CC Media. But every once in a while, I get someone saying, oh, you just heard a crane or a heron. Stop right there. I studied these avian types. It was not a heron, nor was it a crane. I know those types because I see them where I live all the time. They're clumsy and they're annoying. And clearly you can tell they're a bird because they have feathers, even at night. Yeah. I'm not going to go down that road. Clearly there was something abnormal that I witnessed that night. And it just, wow.
Yeah.
If you were there, you would understand, because when you hear it, when you feel it, you will know.
I bet. Yeah. I'd be freaked out if something flew over me making that noise. That was wild. Now, I assume, in the instances where the Ropen, for lack of a better term, is successful in attacking, that we don't hear about the case, but do you have any cases where a near miss, where someone was like possibly about to be attacked or thwarted an attack by one of these things?
Not necessarily. And most of the time it's just a flyby, or it's something that's really close. I love the ones that are more like 6 feet away from the vehicle, or 6 feet away from their face as they're fishing. That's huge. I don't really have a lot of reports of these things attacking people. That there have some that surface here and there. And I've gone looking to see if there's some real credibility behind each testimony. One that really stands out is Finchov in 1986 by a man who was killed by one, because the villagers reported this to the local authorities. Yeah. And he was actually gardening, and it picked him up. And I guess this was a huge pterosaur, about 20 to 30 feet. Quetzalcoatlus, you could say.
Right.
It picked him up and dropped him. That's usually what the signs of what birds do. Eagles do this with mountain goats. They grab them and they throw them to tenderize them. So he was, in a sense, dead, but then it picked him up again and threw him into the trees in front of the villagers and began eating him in front of them. So, of course, when Paul Nation gets there, everybody is, just kind of downtrodden. Bill Gibbons actually reported this on this one too, that they were saying, yeah, we had a Ropen attack. And they're saying, he's like, what do you mean Ropen? That's when they went into detail about what these creatures are. So that was in Finchov in 86. I went looking for the records on this one. And you can find it if you dig deep enough, which is what I love to do. That's the research part of it. And I found that they put down in the record unknown animal, but it was definitely attacked. This person was killed by an animal. They put down unknown animal in the death record. Interesting. But that's not the only time another man, I guess, had died. This other one in a different part of the continent, PNG, he was fishing and a smaller variation attacked him, but he was using its tail like a barb, even though these are sometimes just cartilage or muscle for that flange. Because when people say that barb, that diamond shape, this thing was actually hitting him with it and using it as a rudder in a sense. But as the man is fighting this thing off, it's burning him. Now that's interesting.
How?
Yeah. The only thing I can think of another animal. Yeah, because again, we're like, whoa.
It's not like breathing fire on him, right? Like a dragon. We're not saying he's like a fire. It's interesting.
No, I'm getting the sense that this is like a stingray, or this is like a eel.
Yeah.
Capability. We know that electric eels technically aren't eels, they're more like a fish or something like that, but they possess the ability to sting. Like I mentioned previously earlier.
Jacob, this makes me think that, I meant to sort of bring this up later, but it's like the dragons, I think you're kind of implying in a way this stretches back through time, and the dragons are sort of wrapped up in it. And then that would, in a sense, the concept of a fire-breathing dragon would kind of, if you encountered one of these flying creatures and it had this sort of like toxic skin or whatever, and it got you, and you were burning, and like it was, the Middle Ages, and they don't know anything about that. So it's like, oh, it must have breathed fire on me somehow, because I don't know how else I'd be burning. I don't know,
You nailed it. See, that's part of the aspects that we have to consider of what they were meaning in their descriptions. It points to the wyvern. The wyvern had a long tail and the wings. That's more like a Rhamphorhynchus. So it correlates to it. And we talked about amphibians being poisonous, right? Just by the touch. Well, birds can get around it, though. They learn. They flip them over and eat their belly instead.
Right.
So if an amphibian possesses toxins, is it possible these guys do too? Yeah.
Anything's possible, man. Anything's possible.
Yeah. Especially these guys.
Now, I understand totally where you're coming from here about people not taking pictures because they're in awe. But, you got like 220 cases that you've seen over the years. Are there any instances or people always sort of want that, they want that. And it's like, do you know of any cases? Are there any infamous or legendary or even if they're suspect? So people can, they're listening to the show right now. They can pop over to YouTube and look it up. So are there any, pieces of footage of any of these creatures that you would say are particularly worth people going out of their way to try and find?
Absolutely. There's a great organization called Animals for Discovery that was led by Milt Marcy and Peter Beach and Wayne Hall. When Milt Marcy and Peter Beach went to PNG to investigate this phenomena, the crowd was saying, big bird, to call them out so they could come out and see it. So as they were looking to the sky, as it was, way out there, they decided to film it. And what they filmed was something that very much represents a pterosaur anatomy, because you can see the three-fingered on top of the wings as it's passing over. Now, the skeptics and cynics will say, nope, it's just a bird. Okay, well, that may be, but we're keeping an open mind here. It is fuzzy. It's a little hard to make out, but you can see the structure of the wing that appears to be pterosaur-like. You can see the bulbs on top of the wings that represents the hands. Birds don't have that. Distinct there. So I definitely say that is probably one of the best pieces of imagery that we have in daytime of a Ropen in PNG. I definitely recommend you check that out. Even if you say, maybe I don't think that is one of them, that's fine. Just at least go look, though, and make that assumption for yourself. And I would also say the Paul Nation glowing lights from PNG, which he considers to be the Indaba, because it's a different part of the continent, okay, where he saw it. Tawa, I think, is the place where he saw it. Beautiful. Perfect. And as it was gone through analysis, it was determined that these are not lights, but from an organism instead. And you can see that one appears to be from the body structure and the other one appears to be from the tail, because these lights can illuminate from wings, head, tail, you name it. They can control it. Beautiful key pieces of information there that you should go look for. The Indaba Bird Project by Paul Nation. Josh Gates, Destination Truth. At times, I thought his show was just kind of zany and wacky. I think they should name it What's That instead of Destination Truth. But he captured, his team captured Ropen lights. And when they had that analyzed, they said, we have no idea what it is. It is completely unknown. So it's not a fire source as if someone is emitting fire or shining a light. It's none of that. The testing was done. This is legit information, factual information that points towards the Ropens. So please, everyone, check that out. It's very important. As far as what we're doing here, we haven't got there yet. Not on the same page with these guys. They're doing great work.
I see. Yeah.
But we're working towards that. Mostly what we have is all this testimony that correlates with it. And eventually we're going to get there. My job is not to kill, but to snare, trap, tag, release. That's the key. If you can make that happen.
Yeah, good luck,
yeah,
dude.
Please. Yeah. Again, we're dealing with a flyer. This isn't a land animal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's admirable, but I'm almost like, just shoot the thing so we can show everyone what it is. Now this is kind of tangential to the Ropen stuff, which you covered on your YouTube, and then it's something we haven't really explored too deeply on Binnall of America, but I want to touch on it here as we kind of wind down this conversation. That's the Mokele Mbembe. You've done some stuff on that, and like I said, it's kind of tangential in a way, because it's like, again, for lack of a better term, it's sort of like the remnant dinosaur idea concept. What are your thoughts on all this, and are people still looking for this thing? And what's sort of the latest in the world of Mokele Mbembe?
Yeah, Mokele, which means he who stops the flow of rivers. That implies we're talking about a massive animal, a large animal, in a sense. Okay, I mean, based on what we've known ever since the mid 1800s to the 1980s, when the craze was just huge. People continue to go back to the Cameroon, and they leave empty-handed sometimes. It's more about the adventure to me. If you're enjoying the adventure, you've accomplished. You're not always going to see something. That's just the way it goes. Right. But there is some distinctions we have to make that are very clear. It is being reported that the Mokeles are brownish orange in color. A lot of the testimonies are stating that these guys, that is their color. Beautiful. That's what I was kind of hoping for, something that was a little bit of brightness there with distinction in color patterns. And most people don't know this, but the Mokele is actually smaller than its native sauropods that are seen in other places like Likawala Swamp, or maybe outside the Cameroon. It's called the Lekile Mbembe. So this creature is actually long-necked sauropod as well, but it has 20-foot neck versus the Mokele, which is much smaller. Okay, so the smaller of the two, we always think of Mokele Mbembe as this massive sauropod. Well, it's actually the smaller version of the Lekile Mbembe. And there's a lot more names associated with these sauropods. Not just name this. It just depends what part of Africa you're in, what region you're in. And folks, remember, 600 dialects in the Cameroon alone. So this is not just speculation and made up, which is what most cynics and skeptics are saying. Oh, the missionaries are paying people to come up with these stories. No, that's a load of BS. It really is. Go out there and look for yourself. You'll find out. And try speaking the language if you can.
Well, one of the 600, right?
Yeah, and then a lot of great explorers who have gone out there. Bill Gibbons is one of them. Dave Wetzel is one of them. And now there's another expedition that's getting ready to take off again by, I think it's Josiah Moore. And I think it's Michelle Below. I think it is. There's been lots of
these folks you're talking about here.
Oh, definitely. I would.
You floated a whole bunch of potential future guests. Now, what about the woolly mammoth? What do you think of the old woolly mammoth? You think that might be roaming around still, or you think that's been wiped out?
No, I just think that there's a lot of remnants still out there. A lot of people are saying, well, why didn't I see them? Well, how often you get out there and look?
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just, you deal with these people all the time.
Yeah, like all that whole area up in northern Canada is like, frozen
vast
and vast. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, how often is anyone even out there? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, I don't rule anything out, but yes, relatively speaking.
Well, yeah, I think so. And we did a short story about one of them because a pilot saw one back in the day, a Russian pilot. He saw or heard of them. And now most people think that the mammoths are, stationed in this, frozen tundra. That's not true. They'll go on the plains. It's a mammoth. It's like an elephant. Elephants roam. So these guys are going to do it. They're not always going to be in these frozen temperatures. They're going to be seen in other places. But I think that we do have some remnants out there still. It's just a colossal bioscience is saying, hey, look, we're going to start manufacturing them, recreating them, and they're going to be here soon. So it's like, hey, guys, you do realize there might be some out there roaming. You might want to go looking for that first. But power to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's some remnants out there. Yes, definitely.
Well, that would be awesome if they found some. That would be really cool. Like I said, that sort of whole northern area doesn't seem very well explored. And I'm sure there's people that are like, well, they can look at the whole area with satellites. And who's looking for these woolly mammoths? Only someone really, really looking for them. I don't think anyone really is.
Well, you mentioned Canada. Then Holly Valley is supposed to be a very deadly area because the natives say that there are prehistoric beasts out there. And if you look at the reports that kind of correlate with it, you look at Partridge Creek in Canada, which had a Ceratosauridae roaming in parts of that area back in the early 1900s. I think they discovered the foot of it. So these guys are probably deceased now. They may have crossed the Bering Strait from Canada to other parts like Russia when it was frozen over. But there's so much more information involving Dinosauria that is out there that we may have some remnants still roaming those parts.
It would be fantastic. I think everybody would be thrilled if we could find a dinosaur still hanging around.
Before Colossal Bioscience creates it.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you won't know what's new and what's old. It's
what's engineered and what isn't.
Yeah. Now, my friend Aaron Goulius is a big Beast of Busco fan, so I wanted to bring that one up because you did a video on the Beast of Busco.
Oh yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on the old beastie there? Yeah.
When I was talking to the curators of the museum, they really gave me a lot of detailed information about Oscar himself, named after Oscar Folk, who originally saw him in 1898. So, according to Oscar Folk, this was an abnormally huge turtle, and we do believe with records that this is a snapping turtle, alligator snapper.
Right.
It's just that the snappers, usually you'll find maybe the biggest one is 300 pounds. Well, according to eyewitness testimony, this thing was huge, but either the size of a dining room table or the size of a small automobile.
Right.
That's a big turtle. And it's not unheard of either because, turtle species can get huge if they have a good living environment. It's just that they generally don't. And when you and I talked about the possibility of these vortexes, that might actually line up with Oscar a little bit, but let's keep in mind too, folks, that turtles can walk on land. So if they sense any sort of danger coming their way, such as draining a lake, which did take place, to find him, he may have just said, "I'm out of here."
Right.
Big. It makes you wonder, okay, where did he go? How did anybody miss it? Well, this is the 1949, getting ready to become the 1950s. So the technology isn't there yet. And this is more farmland and country roads. So I guess it's a possibility that he could have been overlooked and made his way into another county. But he is described as a very abnormal sized snapping turtle.
Yeah.
Alligator snapper. And I agree. As I looked into this over and over and over, the case seems so, in many people's minds, it's kind of overlooked because it's just a turtle. At the end of the day, it's just a turtle.
Right.
But to me, it's a prehistoric remnant because he's so big, if he is that size.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's a curious case. It's a fun one, I think, for sure.
Definitely.
Now, I wanted to ask you this. This is kind of really off the wall, but I was like, wait, what's going on here with Jacob's show? Because I saw one of the shows was like you had half was like cryptozoology, and then a half was about marriage or something. So what's going on? What's going on with all that? It's sort of an interesting slant here on. It's like this sort of a lifestyle thing also included in the program. So tell me what's going on there.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because I wasn't sure if I haven't really gotten a lot of feedback about that. That just usually goes into our audio shows. We do two different kinds of platforms. We do a broadcast so people can watch the show, and you can also listen to our radio shows on YouTube, Spotify, CC Media. So when we're creating these shows, my director came to me and said, "Hey, look, we need all these kinds of topics wrapped up into one show." So when you're doing radio, you always try to emphasize a couple of different, genres or whatever, something that can actually help people in their daily lives. So we don't just talk cryptozoology. We talk about things that can actually benefit a human being. And one that I thought, hey, maybe I can share this with the audience is understanding the role of a husband and what they need to be in order to be the best for their spouse. And I think the dangers of dating, the dangers of what you're not ready to face when you enter marriage. So these are all these neat little categories that we try to put in there. I know it's a different step, but it's a necessary one. And when there's something that I can talk about to help people grow, to strengthen them, to encourage them, to enlighten them, I'm going to do it. Because when we're living in this type of world today, it seems like nobody cares about genuine strength anymore. They don't seem to care about the foundation, or they just don't know. And for me, it would have been fantastic if someone said, let me share with you the deeper aspects of marriage or dating so you understand what you're getting involved in. Because everything has to be measured precisely, properly. And what you don't know can hurt you. And I believe everyone needs to know these things.
Interesting. All right. Yeah. Careful out on those apps, kids. That's what he's trying to tell you. I get the sense that you're a deeply religious man, Jacob. Am I correct?
Well, in a sense, I don't consider myself religious. I consider myself more of just Christian because I grew up in a Baptist home. And I know that the world classifies this as religion, but we consider it as just a walk or a belief in the one true God. So it's not just about believing, it's also following. And it's more like a relationship with the one true God. Because when you understand that, there's a deeper part of your life that helps you grow and puts you in the right direction. And when those who follow, they actually tend to absorb so much more and realize what's around them. And for many, many, many years, people have said, well, you being Christian, how does this intertwine with your life? Has this disrupted you from what you've found out? Actually, it hasn't. It has actually strengthened my faith more than anything because it actually points towards a magnificent creator who should get the credit for his creation.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Now, sort of the wrapping up question, like what's next for you, Jacob? Sounds like you got a lot of irons in the fire as it is over there with CC Media and a whole bunch of other stuff, Ropen Network, of course, on all these different platforms. Have you considered writing a book on these cases? What do you got cooking, down the line?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I've been asked to write a book about all of this, and I think I will eventually. I'm still working on what I want to do here. I just am deeply involved in photography, involved in videography, show hosting, journalism, you name it. It's who I am ever since I was young. Investigations are part of it. I think I'm pretty content with where I am. I love telling these accounts. I love creating these stories for people to see because you're not going to find these things on Monster Quest. They're not going to be on Boogeyman. They're not going to be on the Unexplained. This is, when it involves living dinosaurs, it tends to be shunned, which is unfortunate. But it's something that we need to see. So the exciting part, what's coming up next, I hope this happens, if I can get funding through CC Media, I'm going to be going on a dino dig in Montana. And the audience is going to come along for the ride. What I'm going to do is we're going to dig into the dirt, get some low shots for you to see what it's like to be a hands-on paleontologist. And we're going to come away with a fossil. And then we're going to go under the microscope and show you how soft tissue from these bones can be discovered, which implies that these animals are not millions of years old, but in fact, young. So my role next, a part of the network, is to go digging and then become a full-fledged microscopist, which is going to be an exciting journey for me. So I'm going to continue what I do best here. I know that we don't always put out, videos or audio shows all the time because we're working with the community. We do relays. We do community events.
Now, let me ask you, Jacob, excuse me. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Let me ask you. So we didn't get into this. You kind of buried the lead a little bit. So you're of the belief that the dinosaurs, are you a creationist then, or what's your stance on the whole? If you don't think that the dinosaurs are millions of years old, how old are they?
Yeah. This was something I had to ask myself when I was young, because I went to conventions, I went to spiels involving evolutionary theory and creation. And as I listened and kept an open mind from both sides, and I got to meet so many people, I came to my realization that, okay, I don't believe these creatures are old. I am a creationist. I don't believe they're millions of years old like we're being taught. I believe these things are young. But how do I prove that? So then over the years, I found out that this research of soft tissue has been around since 1967, as early as that.
Yeah.
And Mary Schweitzer's discovery of the Tyrannosaur femur with the blood inside, with the soft tissue inside, that she ran tests over and over and over, isn't the first time this happened. As a matter of fact, it's happened with Mark Armitage, with his Triceratops, which is a story we'll be doing next. So we're finding that stretchy material that should not be in a bone that is millions of years old.
Yeah.
It just shouldn't exist, but it's there. So with this factual information, when I went under the microscope to see this, to watch it happen, my mind was blown, but it opened my perspective.
Yeah.
I understand why people believe the way they do, but also, folks, there's something else on the other side we got to pay attention to. And if these things are being seen in our world today, and this correlates with it, that means we have a humongous creator that is in control here. And like I told Tim, we need to pay homage to that.
Right.
We need to understand this.
Absolutely. Let me just dig one bit deeper into this creationist thing, because I do find it interesting. I think you're the first guest we've ever had on with this perspective. I guess the question, and we could really do a whole show on this, but I don't want to, I'm going to let you get going here. But I guess the idea is sort of my question in a way is like, who is responsible for misleading the civilization as far as, because everybody thinks that the earth is, whatever millions of years old and the dinosaurs are old. Yeah. So who is responsible for this grand deception, if you will?
That's for a whole different show. I really think it is, because it goes into some deep, deep truths here. But to sum it up,
I know it's a big one. I know it's a
it is, but it's actually very important. I get where you're coming from with this one, because most people don't know. They do not know. It was an agenda from 5 men who had they really were frustrated with the Church of England, and rightfully so. The Church of England was destructive. Okay, I'm going to say it. It's truth, though. These 5 men literally watched others in their congregation fall victim to those of the religious order. Like, let me just give you one example, okay? A gentleman was on his way home. He fell into a ravine and he was struggling to get out. The woman said, "Oh, what are you doing down there?" And he said, "Well, I'm trapped. Can you help me?" She said, "Sure." "Oh, wait a minute. Aren't you that atheist?" He said, "Well, so what?" It's like, "I'm not helping you until you deny atheism." And that's wrong.
Yeah.
No Christian should ever do it. This is actual factual information. I don't have the name of the individuals off the top of my head, but you can find this out. Mm-hmm. So this actually hurts a human being over time. And from that, all these individuals came forward and rose up against this particular church. And like I said, rightfully so. But the thing is, this agenda was against all believers, not just one particular church, which was their wrong mindset. Everything has a root, cause and effect.
Yeah.
So these 5 men, Darwin included, had an agenda against the church and believers itself, because everything they went through. And that's where this began, this theory. And you, like I said, don't take my word for it. Go look it up. You will. This is deep research that has been done, thorough research, and it will blow your mind when you find out all that's behind it. Because over time, people started to say, sure, feed us more information. It's very easy to brainwash society. It truly is. And the truth, though, must be the anchor. So understand everything has a root and a purpose. And this one was a clear agenda for the wrong reasons. But I get why they did, though. So just to give you a little bit of information there.
There you go. Yeah, that's a great teaser for future appearance on the show to talk about all that. I can't thank you enough, Jacob. I had an absolute blast chatting with you, man. This was a lot of fun. I find your perspective on things very interesting. So I hope folks
appreciate that.
Out your stuff. Ropen Network. Just punch it into the Google machine, folks. Ropen, ROPEN Network. And that'll pull up all the stuff that Jacob has going on. Like I said, he's got a lot of irons in the fire. I salute you for your, your endurance. Because I clicked on your thing and I'm like, wow, this guy's got a lot going on. So I really respect that. And hats off to you, man. Again, thank you for the fascinating conversation.
No, thank you. I appreciate being on your show. You willing to have me, because I will say, this is probably only the 6th or 7th time I've been featured on a show, and that's okay. I'm not looking to get any attention here. I want to just give credit where credit is due to the witnesses, to the wonderful people who have us, such as yourself, Tim, to the research. This is what makes all this exciting for you. So
yeah.
Your audience, keep an open mind, folks. These things are being seen. Go seek the truth for yourself.
There you go. And for those other folks, for the other shows that don't have you on, they're missing out because this was a lot of fun. So they ought to get in touch and get you on their show because this was an absolute blast. Thank you again, Jacob. Much appreciated, brother.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. You have a great week ahead.